Hello. Before you start the brief on Kincaid versus Dees, I want to go over a few concepts that I think will make it easier as you go through. But I want to first talk about two important things. One is if you have not had an opportunity to watch the video that I had on Creative LLC for the last assignment, please go ahead and take a look at that. I kind of dissect some of the different specific questions I asked. For this assignment, you're going to have to use the format that is attached, and the format includes the type of questions you need to answer for each category. So please look at that, and if you have any questions, let me know. But I want to give you some background about third-party beneficiaries because it'll help make sense this case a little better. So there's a thing called privity of contract, and basically what that means is only parties of a contract can enforce the terms of the contract that are subject to its obligations, basically. Meaning you have to be some sort of party to the contract to take someone to court if they breach. And so if the same goes for if I'm not some sort of party to the contract, I cannot be sued and it can't be enforced against me. And what we call this is privity. And privity means you have standing. You can go to court, remember, and stand up in court and sue. And so when we talk about privity, we're asking, does that person have, is it that person somehow a party to the contract? And we know that we have a promise generally by two or more people, but there are people that are outside of the actual contract that are considered parties when it comes to privity and standing. And we call these contract beneficiary. And that means I'm receiving a benefit of a contract, but I'm not a party to a contract. And in some cases, that means I will actually become sort of a party depending on the situation. And in some situations, I won't. But I'm receiving a benefit nonetheless. So let's talk about that. First, I want to talk about the terminology promisor and promisee. When we're talking about promisor and promisee in the context of third-party beneficiary, the promisor is always the one that the beneficiary is saying, hey, wait a second, I'm also part of the promise that you made to the promisee, the person that's getting the benefit, okay? So you look and say, what does this beneficiary say they're entitled to? And from whom? And the person that they're entitled to receive it from is the promisor, and the promisee is the other party. So a third party beneficiary is a person who benefits from the contract of another. But we have two types. One is incidental, and that person is not in privity, has no standing. Okay, they're just incidental beneficiaries. They're just incidentally receiving. Intentional means that we actually intended for them to benefit from a contract that we made, and they're going to have privity and standing. So courts look then to what? The contract. You have to say, was it intended, the original parties, to benefit a third party? So incidental beneficiary, again, is they are not intended to benefit and they don't have any legal rights. So let's look at an example. A major baseball league team contracts to purchase from seller 20 acres of abandoned industrial site to be used for a new stadium. The owner of a pizza parlor on the edge of the seller's land might benefit enormously since 440,000 hungry fans in the neighborhood for 81 home games every season is probably going to come up, right? And now I'm selling lots of pizza. My once marginal operation is a gold mine of cheese and pepperoni. So we know we have this contract between the team and the landowner. But what if the team backs out of the deal? Right? We know the landowner could probably sue the team in the contract, but can the pizza parlor, because they were supposed to benefit from it. And so they look at who would they sue? Well, who's the person you want to enforce the contract on? The team, if they backed out, right? And can I recover costs? Probably not. Why? Because they're incidental. The stadium is a multi-million-dollar investment. And it's most unlikely that the baseball team and the seller of the land were even aware of the pizza parlor owner's existence, let alone that they intended to benefit. So they're probably going to say, nah, you're not going to be able to, because why? You're an incidental beneficiary. It was just incidental to a contract. Intentional beneficiary means we intended for someone to benefit from the contract between the, the two parties that made it, right? And so there's two kinds. One is I enter a contract and I'm specifically entering that to satisfy a duty I owe the beneficiary, right? Or I'm actually giving this as a gift. And so you're not a party of this contract if you're the beneficiary, but a contract was made on your behalf. For example, think about life insurance when you think about donee beneficiary. Your life insurance policy allows you to list a beneficiary. Yet that beneficiary is not part of the contract, right? But it is made for that person, so they become a donee beneficiary. And if you die and the insurance refuses to pay, that donee beneficiary has standing to sue. Okay? So another example would be, let's say John's father, Clarence, has an overgrown lawn. So John enters a contract with Billy Goat to pay it to mow Clarence's lawn. All right? So let's say then Billy Goat doesn't pay it. Who is the promise? What is the promise that Clarence is trying to enforce? Well, the mowing of the lawn. So who is the promiser? Billy Goat, right? And who is the promisee? That's going to be John because he's the other party to this contract, right? And Clarence is not a party, but he is benefiting. And is he doing it because John owed a debt to him? No, John is doing it as a gift. He's donating, but he still is a beneficiary and he can then, and it was intended that he benefit, so he could then go in and make a claim if Billy Goat doesn't do their work. So John didn't owe his father a legal duty, but simply he wanted to make, John did not owe Clarence a legal duty. He simply intended to make a gift. So Clarence is an intended donee beneficiary, and he can sue just as well as John can. They both can sue on the contract. Okay, now let's take a look at creditor beneficiary. Remember, these are both intended beneficiaries of someone else's contract. The difference is here, it's made to pay off the debt of someone else. Joe owes Sally $100. So instead of paying his debt to Sally, he says, hey, Stu, if you mow the lawn 4 times and Stu agrees to pay Sally 25, I'm going to mow your lawn 4 times and then you just pay what you owe me to Sally. Okay, so he's not entering a contract with Sally now, John. He's going to mow the lawn for Stu, and Stu's going to pay not him, but Sally. Okay, so who is the promisor if Stu does not pay? Stu. And the promisee is John, the other person to the contract, right? Because the parties entered it to benefit Sally. And if Sue doesn't pay Sally, she is a creditor beneficiary and she can go after Stu as if she entered the contract, okay? She receives payment from Stu to repay the debt, and she can sue if she needs to enforce the contract. So those are the differences. What you need to kind of keep in mind is a incidental beneficiary is just someone who has happened to benefit. For example, when municipalities build parks and things like that, we're all incidental beneficiaries if we are benefiting from that contract that they entered in to build that park. But a intended beneficiary is where the beneficiary themselves was supposed to, the whole purpose or one of the main purposes was for them to benefit. One other thing I want to talk about regarding this case is something to do with relocation companies. And a company, relocation companies are hired by employees and they assist employees for the company to move for new locations. And so generally speaking, the seller and the company of the house, which would be in the employee, and the company relocation negotiate for the house. And during the sale, it either can be owned by the relocation company or by the seller. And there's these option to list contracts. And these option to list contracts basically say you get the benefit, I'm sorry, not the benefit. You are going to list this house, right? And the question then becomes, is the person who buys it from the actual relocation company also, are they a beneficiary of the original contract between the seller and the relocation company? And that's kind of what this case has to deal with. So, as always, if you have any questions, let me know. Please be sure to follow the case format.